Hi, Capricorn Sun and Rising. Welcome to your October 2022 Astro Update. It's Rena here. The big news is we have eclipse season beginning, and we also have some retrogrades ending. And in terms of retrogrades ending, actually at the beginning of the month, the second to be exact, Mercury goes direct at well, I don't have the exact degree of Virgo, but Virgo is a fellow earth sign to you, so it's the one before you, so that's related to the ninth house. Ninth house can be issues surrounding like long distance travel, so any travel plans that got something went awry, and also this can be in terms of university matters. So, for instance, the retrograde began in the 10th house in the sign of Libra and then went back into Virgo. So, how I could see that is if someone was with their career possibly going to work overseas or something like that with their company, and then something fell through. There might be some kind of way that this is being resolved, perhaps. And another way that this might have played out for some people is that at the beginning of the retrograde, something might have dawned on you that you're not quite sure that the occupation, the career that you're pursuing, either that you are currently involved with or that maybe you studied in college and you just got your feet wet, you started actually being in the real world and you realize, I don't like what this stands for. Maybe it doesn't feel ethical for some reason. There are so many nuances that this could represent. And so the ninth house can represent your philosophical framework. And, these kinds of things, I mean, you could be in an occupation that's 100% legal and it still feels slimy to you in some way. It still feels like you're being forced to be less than truthful, being less than authentic. And so that might have been weighing on you in some way. Another thing that could be happening is that you are finding that something isn't what you thought it was going to be. You ruled the 10th house, by the way, in case you didn't know. And so you really are career oriented, but with Pluto transing your sign for 14 years now, this has really been a transformational agent for, I'm sure, a fair number of Capricorn individuals, at least the ones who are aware enough to really see how they have transformed their lives. And it could be, mainly in an interior way. Maybe on the external level, you just seem like your usual self, but you know that you've changed quite a bit. And that can also change priorities. So, yeah, there's a lot going on there, but Mercury is direct, and on the 8th. And by the way, if you felt like your business or whatever you want to call it kind of slowed down when these planets are retrograde in these earth houses, that might translate to maybe not having as much of an income as you normally do. And so maybe you will see more flow with that. So that would be nice too. On the 8th, Pluto turns direct at 26 degrees of Capricorn, and Pluto is going to go into Aquarius in March of next year. So we're at the tail end of this. I mean, it is going to retrograde and go back into Capricorn in 2023. I'm not saying that it's not going to do that, but I'm just saying that we're getting down to the nitty gritty here with Pluto. And so when it was retrograding for however many months, I think it's like 5 months or so, that might have been more on the internal level for you. And that's difficult sometimes because Pluto is, even when it's just directed outwards, it's not exactly warm and fuzzy. So you might actually feel a sense of relief, psychological pressure being kind of lessened in a sense, to some degree, now that it is direct. But it still is an intense transit when it's in your first house, because it's really challenging you to find out who your true self is, not this superficial thing that sometimes people rely on their physical appearance or whatever, even their accomplishments, to pave the way, to make to kind of impress people or what have you. And there might have even been things that have happened in the past 1.5 decades that have humbled you so that you could see that you're not any of those things. On the 9th, the next day, there's a full moon at 16 degrees of Aries. That's another cardinal sign, so it's going to be that angular house, in this case, the fourth house of home and family. Oh, wow. That's pretty emotional, because that can be revelations about your childhood. It could be something with your mother, in particular, but some people even say the father, but one of your parents, that has to do with maybe why you are the way that you are, or seeing them in a different light, understanding them more, or even in some cases saying goodbye to them for some reason. Maybe you just realize that you can't continue down that path, and that would be very difficult for a Capricorn person, because typically your sign is very family oriented. But also saying goodbye to a house, maybe selling a house, or at least the first stages of letting go of that. Maybe you haven't moved yet, but you're saying, okay, I think it's time. On the 10th, Mercury goes into Libra. Actually, it's really going back into Libra. And so it's in that house of career. And you might be talking to people in positions of power, something along those lines. So whatever that's about, I don't know. I think it might even be like you could be doing public speaking, not sure. On the 23rd, a lot happening. Venus goes into Scorpio, and then the Sun goes into Scorpio. So Scorpio for you, Capricorn, is going to be your 11th house of hopes and wishes and friendships and groups. And Venus here and the Sun could be very social, could be very positive with this. I do think of Capricorns sometimes as lone wolves, or some kind of, people that are maybe workaholics, or not really, socializing isn't really their bag. They would rather work instead of just socialize. But you may be doing that for some reason. Maybe this is schmoozing, and you're doing it to network for your business. That's always a possibility. But yeah, you might just be having fun. Maybe you've been through a lot of career stuff, with the Libra energy, and you feel like you have earned the right to, play a little bit, meaning that you're dealing with other people instead of just working, so, overtime or what have you. But there might be a specific reason for this. Venus can also be finding love through friendships, if you're with other people and then you just meet the person of your dreams. But on the same day, your ruler, Saturn, goes direct. So that, in a way, you could say that's very significant, because that's your ruler. Saturn has been transiting through the sign of Aquarius. So this is your second house of earned income. So that might have even been a bit of a, even though Saturn isn't a personal planet, that might have slowed down your income or restricted your income to some degree. So I want to ask you to reflect upon the past. I don't know how long Saturn has been retrograde, for several months now. If you have felt that you haven't been earning as much as you typically do, so that might be easing now. Um, on the 25th, there's a solar eclipse at, or well, let me just backtrack about that Saturn going direct. Saturn in the second house can actually be really putting together a financial plan, not just for this year, but maybe for years to come, that covers everything. Maybe you've even met with a financial planner, and so that's like a budget on steroids even. And you might have been really setting this up. And if you haven't, it might be like a really great time to do it now that Saturn is direct. But what I wanted to say is that when Saturn was retrograding, you might have gotten lax, actually. So that's what I really mean to say. Now you might be getting back into those habits. And there might have been reasons that you had to do that, but now you may feel like, hey, it's time. And sometimes we have to kind of like really tune into ourselves about why we're doing what we're doing, because maybe you did do it to some degree, but it wasn't that easy to sustain it, and you had to tweak it or what have you. So on the 25th, which is 2 days later, we have a solar eclipse at 2 degrees of Scorpio, again in that 11th house. So this is an area that is starting to be triggered with you, in addition to the 5th house of love with Taurus. Now, with the Taurus energy, there is going to be another eclipse in November that is going to, it's a lunar eclipse, and Uranus is involved in that. Uranus is retrograding and involved in that. So that's going to be, I'm not going to talk about that, but I'm just saying that these two areas, these polarities of the 5th and 11th houses, are being activated, triggered, and the North Node is in the 5th house. So those of you who are single, or even those of you who are coupled, who have found that your relationship, your primary relationship, has been suffering for whatever reason, maybe because you're changing. There might be somebody that is like a soulmate type of person that is coming in for you, or maybe you already have met this person, but you have not started a relationship with them. I don't know when the eclipses are going to end with. I know in 2023 they're going to be in Aries and Libra, but even there's going to be one in Taurus even a year from now. So I don't know, like, if that's probably going to be the last one, I would think. But there's going to be, another one in Scorpio in 2023. So the bottom line is that for some reason, the people or the groups that you find yourself drawn to, you have to really assess it, because the South Node is there. Because it might be something that you normally would get involved with, but it really is old territory. What the North Node represents is more of that type of direction that you're meant to go in, and it's not your comfort zone. It's outside of that comfort zone. The South Node is the comfort zone, but you are going to have a solar eclipse in that area in the 11th house, so it may introduce new people into your life, and new groups that you might find yourself wanting to belong to. So keep an open mind. That's all. And also your hopes and wishes. Maybe you're going to birth a whole bunch of new long range goals to make your life what you want it to be, as happy as possible. On the 28th, Jupiter, which is retrograding, it was in Aries, and now it goes back into Pisces on the 28th, a few days before Halloween. And another sextile, but this time, a couple signs after you, so that's going to be the third house. And this can be some kind of, in some cases, even financial gain or potential for financial gain that has writing attached to it or teaching. If you are trying to start or finish a course to give you some kind of training, you may have the funds for that, or you may look into something that maybe it was the course was filled up, and then you get this lucky break that has to do with that. On the 29th, Mercury goes into Scorpio, so Mercury goes into the 11th house. And you may just feel this urge to call people that that you haven't, maybe you've not been speaking to some of your friends recently because you've been involved in other things. But this can also be about thinking, maybe writing down the kind of desires that you have. Actually, this one astrologer who is a late astrologer who has passed away, she said that when you have the new moon in the 11th house, you get 40 wishes. Well, I don't know if she said anything about if you have a solar eclipse, because that's supposed to be the power of 3 new moons. So is that 120 wishes? I mean, that would be, I remember trying to list 40 wishes, and that was an interesting type of thing to accomplish. I don't know if I actually was able to find 40 things to wish for, but that might be something interesting to try. And it could be, it doesn't have to be like major goals. Maybe some are major, but some could be quite small. But I don't know, that might be a bit much. But go for it if you want to give yourself that kind of challenge. On the 30th, Mars retrogrades at 25 degrees of Gemini. And it's going to be retrograding until mid-January and staying in Gemini until mid-March. So we're talking about a long time here. And for you, this is the 6th house of work. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay. So what I would say to you, because Mars went into Gemini back on August 20th, and here we are talking about 2 months later, a little bit more than 2 months later. Have you had any kind of aggression in the workplace? Maybe this is not so much anything that you have negative feelings about, coworkers or things like that, but you are being told by an authority figure that, you're being kind of like pushed into competing with your fellow coworkers, and you might not want to, but they're kind of engineering things that way. Or maybe there is some kind of, I don't know if I'd say bad blood, but some kind of like thing, like a struggle between you or a conflict between you and a fellow, like a coworker. And if this is the case, you may have been told, to kind of keep quiet about it, keep it to yourself. And now that when Mars goes direct, it might be that something else transpires that makes you able to kind of express how you feel, because Mars can be anger. And if somebody is doing something to you and you don't have recourse, it can make you feel like you're turning that anger inward. And that's not obviously healthy. And by the way, the sixth house is health. So it can also be like someone, let's say somebody starts an exercise regimen, and they do it, they overtrain, or they do something and they, pull their hamstring or something, so they have to stop for a while. They have to heal, or they can't do it because they don't have the proper, whether it's like you count on going to a gym, or you had certain equipment that you don't have anymore. But what you can do is, when Mars goes retrograde, it doesn't mean that you have to be completely inactive. It might mean, for somebody who typically has done aerobic exercise, maybe you do yoga or something that's gentle, something that's stretching that you don't have to, be vigorous about. It could be something along those lines too. So, learning how to also curb your aggression, because there might be, you're a Capricorn, so you might be the kind of person who is like not trying to be overbearing, but you are so very ambitious that it just kind of intimidates other people, and it creates that sort of conflict. And, so for some reason, you have to kind of keep that to yourself. And it doesn't have to be anger. It can just be that there are, like, it's really cool how now they're talking about these about self-regulation with the nervous system and things like that, and just shaking loose your excess energy. I mean, there might be even physical exercises you can do that help you in terms of health. And that might be what you're doing, is regulating your nervous system by doing those exercises to help you internally. Okay, that's what I have for you, Capricorn. I hope that this resonated. I'm promoting my double readings because they are a great savings, and they are more comprehensive. My deep dive readings comprise an hour at least of natal chart analysis and an hour of transits for the next 12 months, whenever those 12 months begin. So it's just like a rolling period. And it just gives that sense of both sides of astrology, not just the predictive astrology, which are the transits, but also looking at the natal chart, because to me, that is super important, because that's something that a person has for their whole life. And so transits come and go, but whatever you have in your natal chart, that's kind of like your cosmic blueprint. And when you see what's in your chart, you can really feel that sense of validation that, yeah, I did come here with these talents. And maybe other people in your life are kind of skeptical that you can do a certain thing that you want to do. And this can give you that feeling that, yeah, you know what? I really do have what it takes. Or this really is my path, even though it doesn't feel like my path, because I'm getting all this other feedback about it, or maybe I'm still indoctrinated in a certain way of thinking, but I'm really questioning my thoughts now. So anyway, I have that one, and I have like another double reading and some standalone readings. You can find out more information at my website, which is rainamoonastrology.com. The link to my website is below. Thank you for listening. Take care. Bye.